Most people don't know about it or haven't given it any consideration because it doesn't appear to rely on us being so serious that we're about to have a cathartic moment. I think this releasing second is true, and I do think it started. For a little moment, it aches. There could be a lot of confusion, so we're making those changes. The world has a tendency of surprising individuals who expect it to function in a certain manner. There are a lot of signs that one can look at the figures to see how fear is making its way into the markets. M2 growth has been declining since reaching a peak of 27% in 2020. Unless the rate of money turnover is primarily determined by speed, and we live in a society where pace is chosen, we have come to terms with the fact that its mileage each year is likely to be less than 3%, which opens up a lot of room for growth or inflation. Stand-up. Businesses and individuals alike are presumably more engaged and frugal than ever before. Global liquidity, especially in investment markets, is starting to dry up at this point in this bull run. Examining business practices more closely reveals that most are cutting jobs and have no intentions to expand. Acknowledging the fact that things are likely to slow down and that there is less certainty around while more money is published and there will be more liquidity available for the business cycle is usually a good indicator of the direction the financial system is taking and how optimistic business owners are about a stable economic system in the future. They do this often enough that it will be noticeable until the Federal Reserve announces its quantitative easing plans in a public statement, or other nations begin selling bonds and pushing the conversion of US dollars to their currencies, providing additional liquidity in US dollars to ease global tensions. The specifics of this remain a mystery to us, despite the fact that we have received numerous positive information pertaining to Japan and China. They are selling a variety of U.S. bonds right now, which is helping to increase liquidity in the U.S. markets, something that American customers really want. Evidently, right now, Europe, Russia, and China are all engaged in very much the same thing, considering the U.S. dollar's dominance, especially in light of the continuing change wars caused by Trump's policies. Europe may be trying to make their currencies a little bit stronger, which is why they are doing this to some extent. Given this, I'd like to elaborate on what Cathie Wood has to say regarding economics, which will soon have a greater impact on the cryptocurrency market. I find a lot of it quite interesting, so listen up, and then we can return to Cathie Wood. I suppose the beginning of this cathartic moment occurred during the gilt journey, but things are becoming so awful now that we're approaching it. According to the Fed, their activities do affect the world, but they are very much focused on the U.S. market. This brings to mind a number of early ADS, when two accords, the Loa Accord and the Plaza Accord, were reached by Treasury ministers from several countries to sell dollars in an effort to curb global deflation. They are sure their currencies are falling in value whenever I mention deflationary effect, which makes their inflation charge look like it seems like they're experiencing hyperinflation or are about to, but they could be suffocating under the weight of dollar-denominated debt that they can't pay off. So we're left wondering what the U.S.'s Achilles heel is. Are our pensions at stake here? Although we are aware of the existence of LDI techniques in the U.S., their utilization is not as extensive as we believe. In that case, where do you think we are seeing the weakest links? We now have more reason to be concerned about autofinancing than the day before the pricing index known as the Mannheim Used Automotive Index. Priced wisely, it dropped another 3%, which turned into a 4% drop in the last month. Deflation is evident in the device yet again as the year-over-year increase has plummeted from 54% to 51%. The index hit a high in January and is now down 14% due to the 20% drop in that month. What makes this so crucial precisely? There are a lot of assumptions made by auto papers and buyers about the automobile's remaining worth. These values had been steadily rising, though maybe not quite as much as the used car index, but they were still there. Here is where the used car fee index will collapse if our prediction is true. Since many COVID survivors preferred to drive rather than use public transportation, a large number of people bought cars even though they weren't really in need of them. Additionally, they were glad to see used car prices rise, as it bodes well for their ability to resell these automobiles once the storm has passed. For the record, used automobile prices have risen 54% in the last year, but have since leveled off or even declined. Overpaying for used automobiles has left dealers sitting on losses. They would be wise to unload their inventory now while loan rates are rising. We estimate that this is currently taking place and that the value of vehicle paper is close to $1 trillion. Although this won't pose a systemic concern, some buyers may find it remarkable because, to auto paper's rise to the top spot in 2008, is there anything else that the U.S. is lacking properly? Companies are heavily indebted. But why? This is due to the fact that they have been catering to short-term shareholders who demand return shares at the expense of long-term sustainability, and who are indifferent to the fact that these companies are taking on substantial debt to fund their operations. Parts of the economy that could be hit hard by both secular and cyclical forces, and I think the retail sector is one of those. Now that the pipeline is full of deflationary indicators, beginning with commodities, which we will talk about shortly, we are shocked by the quantity of inventory taking up space, and we are looking at this from a deflationary perspective. Therefore, we believe this is the bigger chance. Stores are overflowing with product, though, and even the ultra-modern and extremely provocative Nike sells largely to retail outlets farther down the consumer level. There were signs that the customer was falling behind even as Nike's inventory went up 434. There was a 68% increase in North American inventories and a corresponding rise in the overall number of shipments,